All right. Ethics. Ethics. You're supposed to also set the example as a member of the profession. I got to see Bruce Schneier booed one time at a Black Hats conference because he presented a paper in which he said, we can't play both sides. We can't take money to secure organizations all week long and then Friday night go home and start hacking. The attendees really didn't like that idea. But his point made a lot of sense to me. If we're expected to uphold the standards, if we're going to hold other people to those standards, we're not allowed to skirt those gray areas. We can't cross those lines. Also, we want to encourage others to come along with us and play that same way. Computer crime. Ethically, who's a criminal? If you violate the law, does that mean you're actually engaged in a computer crime? Answer is yes. Yeah. Privacy and anonymity. Do we have an expectation of each in our current environment? And again, yes, we are very strange ducks when it comes to both of those things. We believe that we should have both, but we're really quick to give up either for absolutely the most minimal or no reason whatsoever. Intellectual property. I have heard from so many students, not professional students, but mostly these are the 6th to 12th graders. I have heard from so many students, well, I asked Jay-Z for permission to use his song on my website, but he didn't get back to me. So now I'm allowed, right? I asked for permission. Why is that not the case? Why does intellectual property not work that way? Because it doesn't work that way with tangible property either. Jay, can I borrow your car? Okay, thanks. No. Just because you left the keys in the ignition and the engine running doesn't mean I get to take your car. Just because it's easy to download your stuff from the internet doesn't give me the authority to do so. Intellectual property is treated the same way as physical property. Other topics. Professional responsibility, especially in a global environment. I mean, wild stuff that I did not expect to hear in the 21st century, where they were working with, was it a customer or it was a vendor, I think? The vendor came in and just started talking all sorts of trash about all sorts of people in the most debased and degraded way. And the question becomes, if that's the culture of the vendor, if that's the culture of the customer, assuming, let's say even they come from a different culture, let's say they come from a different country, are we supposed to overlook that in pursuit of our business? Do we spurn their business because their culture doesn't match ours? Do we try to use some sort of cultural superiority and say, we're not going to do business with you because you don't do things the way we do them? There's yes answers and there's no answers. And this is, again, it's a topic. Common fallacies. The computer game fallacy is the if the computer lets me do it, it must be okay. The game wouldn't let me do it if it wasn't all right. Right? A lot of users, especially unsophisticated users, don't realize that the computer's not a super genius. That all the computer is a set of rules. All it can do is what it was told to do. And then if you go outside the scope of those things and it lets you, that's not the fault of the computer. The computer's not designed to know all the possible uses that it might be used for. Law-abiding citizen fallacy. If it's not illegal, it must be okay, right? Ooh, well, if it's not illegal, it means you can't necessarily be prosecuted unless the prosecutor really wants to prosecute you. Anybody remember the case of the Facebook mom? I think it was just decided last year. It was a lot of media attention. Facebook mom was a mother of a girl who she felt that her daughter had been bullied by this other girl at school. So Facebook mom decided to teach bully girl a lesson. Anybody know what she did? Is any of this coming back? She created an online persona of a teenage boy of the age of her daughter and this person from school. And this teenage boy virtually approached this girl from school and engaged in a relationship online with her over a period of months. This is a really sick woman. There's something seriously not right with her head. At the end of a few months, the teenage boy, the virtual teenage boy, just dogged out the girl, the bully girl, and called her all sorts of terrible names, said that he wasn't going to be her friend anymore, and said that he was breaking up with her. Bully girl went upstairs and hung herself, and her mom found her in her bedroom and was very upset with Facebook Mom. Had Facebook Mom broken the law?
No. It depends on the conversation that she was having with the person.
I say no.
I say no, too. I don't. It's horrible. It's monstrous. It's on a level of demonic to have to plan something like that and execute it over the period of months. What kind of evil person must you be? However, it's not illegal. There's no law that says you can't be a jerk. She didn't touch her. She didn't break any of the laws regarding communication with minors. All she did was pretend to be something she wasn't. The prosecutor felt differently. The prosecutor said she violated Facebook's terms of service when she created a false account pretending to be a teenage boy. Therefore, she's violating the Computer Security Act, which says you will not commit wire fraud using a computer. Yeah.
But was it a wire fraud?
Here's what the court said. No, it wasn't. Because if the government can enforce that sort of thing, who reads the terms of service? How long are the terms of service? They're like the EULA, aren't they?
How long or how often do they change?
And do people go and use those things expressly for the anonymity that they offer? If the terms of service are something that can be used as a legal hammer, people aren't going to be free to use online, especially social media networks, right? So at first she was found guilty. I think on appeal the decision was thrown out. She was also busted on a couple other lesser charges too. And again, the point being, just because you're in accordance with the law doesn't mean you can't be fired, doesn't mean that you can't be sued, doesn't mean that a prosecutor who really wants to get you can't go after you as well. Shatterproof fallacy. Shatterproof fallacy. Anyone heard of that one? If I'm not doing harm to the system, then it's okay. A lot of hackers, we'll get down to the hacker fallacy in just a little bit. A lot of hackers believe that I'm just doing it for educational purposes. So it's not really illegal. It's not really unethical. I'm just learning about it. Doesn't work that way. Candy from a baby fallacy. Anyone guess just by the name of it what that one is?
It's too easy.
Yes and yes. Yeah. It's blaming the victim. If you didn't want me to steal your stuff, you should have hardened your systems, right? The law does not agree. Again, even if you leave the key in the ignition and the engine running and the door unlocked, you're still not allowed to steal my car, right? Hacker fallacy. Again, hackers think as long as I'm not doing it for malicious intent, I'm doing it for my own edification, or I inform the target when I do find a vulnerability, it's okay for me to do it. Not true. Not true legally, not true ethically as well. Tying into the hacker fallacy and the hacker ethic and hacktivism. What's the free information fallacy? The belief, and this came out of the quasi-hippie California computer age early in the 70s, came out of the concept of information should be free. It should be shared widely and available, that human development is best nurtured by the widest disseminated information. There's an argument to be made there. There's something certainly beneficial about information being spread far and wide. However, that is absolutely not the culture that we operate in right now. We recognize people's intellectual property. Anyone think of a modern example of somebody who believes in this to the extent that they bought an old missile control facility and set up shop in that? That they've hardened their own servers so that they could make information free to the rest of the world? That they were responsible for one of the biggest breaches of military data in all of history? WikiLeaks, yeah. Fascinating model. And they have enough supporters that they are pretty well funded, too. Hacking and hacktivism. Can anyone think of an example of hacktivism? Or people who claim to be hacktivists as opposed to just criminals?
Anything responding from WikiLeaks, pretty much.
Okay, all right. A lot of the anonymous follow-ons after the WikiLeaks events. Anonymous is an unnamed, distributed group of hackers who gather together for common purpose and attack targets of their own selection. They do it with a whole bunch of differing set of skill sets, some of them pretty sophisticated. They do what they do because they feel they have a reason. They feel they're vindicated to do it. They think they're on the side of justice. So all of their actions are justifiable because they're on the side of the good guys. All right, ethics resources. There's a bunch of different lists of ethics and guidelines and standards. These are a bunch of different sources listed in the text. They all have good and bad points. We don't have to delve into each of them.